And with that, I'm going to pass you to Al.
Thank y'all. I'm glad to be here. I hated some of these circumstances, really. So let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. You can also keep me in your thoughts and prayers. So, it's funny. Someone came up here and encouraged me to have fun. And in my meditation this morning, I got two things, and that was mentioned about meetings and have fun. And recovery is a lot of fun. First, I'll thank the committee, and I guess, and no, I do thank them. And I got the privilege of speaking here on the 25th anniversary of this conference. And really, it was a God thing. I mean, I was here when Roy McCormick was here, and all our ones that walked before us. And I don't know, it's just a special place. I couldn't believe there was such a big room of sofa people. And I'll just say this: I brought my son-in-law, my wife and I, who've come for years, and I have a wife and a former wife. I want you to know that. My former wife is who helped me get in there. And then she divorced me. But my wife we were here, and so we invited we wanted to see the grandson. And so the son brought up the grandson. The son was out there playing in the field, qualifying to get here. So while he was here, I said, look, it was Friday night. I said, look, you got a speaker tonight. So I come, and he said, yeah, I'll come. So we all came down. We were walking out that door, and I said, well, Tommy, what'd you think? He said, I can tell these people aren't sober. He said, I see a bunch of them. I said, oh, okay. Next year, we were here, he was 7 months sober. Thank you to the folks in Vail. He's now very spiritually alive and active spiritually and doing real well. And anyhow, we were walking out the door, and I said, well, Tommy, what do you think? This year. I said, yeah, this is great. This is just great. I said, you want to know what you said last year? But this place does mean a lot to me, and I appreciate y'all carrying it on with a bunch of it. And I enjoyed the taste too. Just a quick note on that. I was riding up to see my sister, who's been really severely ill and miraculously is coming around to a point like, did we pray for this? I mean, it's so good. And I was listening to the tapes on the way up. It was from last year, and I believe it was Chad that was the speaker. Chuck, yeah, Chuck. I had Chuck on there. It was one right after the other, and the lady from South Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these were like awesome tapes. I'm going, yeah, this is great. I didn't get to hear our Chuck last year. And so I'm listening to those, just loving it. And my brother-in-law, who is a Sunday school teacher, and trying to earn his way into the program, said, hey, you don't have any AA tapes, do you? I said, yes. And so I gave him those tapes. So you never know who, it might not be your vine for you, it might be your vine for someone else. It's really up to God to bless him. And as I hope he's going to do this today. I know he will. I'll say this, I was telling her, a newcomer said this in one of our meetings. She said, if you screw up, she said, I do know that if you screw up or make a mistake, God can bless it. You know, we're all here because alcoholism came in our life. God blessed it in my life. So, you know, I don't have to worry too much. I also want to thank Tiara. She's here from Philadelphia, and we call you out, Tiara, because this is who I want you to talk to. I got the text, actually. I didn't know I got one from her. I got it from a friend that Valentina wanted to speak to me, and I thought, well, how did she know I wanted to talk to Valentina? I've been talking to Tiara, and she's going to have a roundup in the Philadelphia area. And he's looking how they have some contacts with Al-Anon. So here she is. I have a phone number. Yes, to ask her. My group, I'm in the New Beginnings Al-Anon. First Presbyterian Church in Effingham, South Carolina. And that's near Florence. I'll tell you that. The good news, if you come to that meeting, we give you a paperback book that Al-Anon has on their website, how Al-Anon works. It's kind of like our version of the big book. Not that it's the big book, but it is a very good book, and good to pick up. Good to give to people too. My other home group, is the Friday Speaker Al-Anon phone meeting. So it's on the website. You can call in. It's tremendous. I have a lot of respect for this electronic meeting and others I've been to as well. The amount of recovery on that is phenomenal, in my opinion. And also the newcomers are there. There's a lot of newcomers, and you hear a lot of them are walking or eating. You know, it's funny, you get there early and nobody's there, but then you get there about 10 to 15 minutes and the meeting is 20 minutes. And it's not one of these 100 meetings, but if you want to hear other Al-Anon stories, it's Friday noon, and encourage that. I also want to thank the Marion AA group. I've been going there for years, and they welcome. The other night we went in, we were talking about it, and they said, "Oh, here's Al-Anon." And the meeting was so much pissing them off. I told my wife, I said, "Oh, we got an Al-Anon meeting." So I really appreciate AA support, and it shows people it's here and all sorts of conferences, including the sponsor. I also want to thank my wife and my former wife who got me here. My former wife passed away in September a year ago. And she passed away sober. She called me 7 years ago or so, somewhere like that. He said, "Hey, I think I've got a drinking problem." I've been in here since, I didn't give you my qualifying, April the 23rd. 1988. 7 years ago, I was 7. She called me and said, "I think I've got a drinking problem." And God put it in my mouth. Well, fantastic. Because until you know that, there's nothing you can do about it. I said, "It's great." Now God put that in my mouth. What I wanted to tell her is, but it brought a lot of joy to us. And I say us to all our family. I have 2 children. And to see her grow, and to grow spiritually. And she would get mad at us and call us back and apologize. Sometimes the same day. And then we'd call around and say, hey, do you know what happened? She got mad at me and she called me back and apologized. I mean, that was a big deal. So we all got excited and stayed excited. And it's funny, it wasn't funny, she was on her last days here on earth. So we went up to see her, and I mean, this is his second wife. Al-Anon has the tradition where you encourage your family member and alcoholic relative. And when I came in Al-Anon, there's no encouragement, like, damn, do this, do that. But so I had to practice encouragement. And I'm going to say this too about that. She was 45 minutes late one day, bringing me the kids. We're out here on I-26. I'd driven from Myrtle Beach to I-26. Poor old me. And here she comes with the kids 45 minutes late. And I said, well, thank you for bringing them, and thank you for taking time to bring them here. I appreciate it. Now, inside, you know what I'd say? You're 45 days. All this stuff. But I said that. Afterwards, she had to get back on the highway and go back around and take the interstate, the turnaround, and then come back down, going back to her home. And I saw her driving like this. It hit me. She was in a head-on traffic accident in a Mini, a little small car. She was 16 years old. She's always had phobias driving. She earned, I mean, it really was thank you for bringing it. I wasn't lying. She really did do something good. But that was the first time I really realized it. And I've been married to her for 11 years. This is after, divorce and all that. And so here I am practicing encouragement and finding out, oh my gosh, I found out there's a lot about people who have this disease that has nothing to do with alcoholism. Most of them are really good people. All of them are good people inside. Not all of them want you to know it. So you got to set boundaries. But anyhow, I want to thank my wife for being here. My wife is very loyal, very supportive of me, and she's been that way the last 30 years. I mean, I've been in service work. I've worked with the homeless. So it's not it's been a wild ride. So God's program is wild ride at times. So I also want to thank the speakers. I love what you were saying again about the fundamentals. Power is our problem, lack of power. And the solution is power. And I came in here with the higher power. But I thought he'd punish me. So they said, look, Al, why don't you take the group and listen to what the group says? And I said, okay, that's sacrilegious, but I'll do it. And that helped me tremendously. I eventually heard an AA speaker that I could choose a loving higher power. So I made that choice. Lo and behold, it's the same one I heard, but I didn't know that because it wasn't my way. So, but I also loved what Lindsay said. That thing about color. How do you describe a color to someone who's never seen that color? So you're going to describe this illness to someone who has never seen that color. You know, it goes back to the lack of power. So I like the spontaneity, the fun, the life. I think we all share desperation, that gift of desperation. That's why I'm in these rooms. That's why I go to these conventions. Because I'm scared of me. You know, myself got me here. I wanted to say that other woman did, but no, I chose. That's one thing they tell me. I chose. What are you talking about? So I also enjoy Red. Red's name is service. You know, and it is about, you don't have it to go tomorrow or yesterday. It's all about what you're going to do today. And, unfortunately, I pray the 3rd and 7th step prayers every day. So when I got wind, you know, Valentino was calling, my committee started speaking immediately.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, calm down, man. I am somebody. And I've had to learn to discipline that committee. Not just my thinking, but the damn committee. But I appreciate Red because he's an example. He's an example if you've been to this conference before. You've seen him out there working. And he just gave you some good news. Too. There are people you meet here that you may not see them for a year or two. So you ask around, you know, and one of them's going to be our speaker next year. So y'all are in for a treat next year as well. Also in your meeting, keeping it simple. You know, intellectualizing, I thought was a gift. When they said meditation, I thought, how do you meditate? And I'd heard an old Baptist preacher one day, said a guy came to him and said, how do you pray? And he said, why don't you get down there and guess at it? So I asked some people about meditation and basically guessed at it. And now I actually do meditation and prayer every day, every morning. And I also do mindfulness sometimes. You see what that committee sometimes. And you'd be acting real nice in that committee. Over there somewhere. You gotta call them in. Talk to them about God. Got a 12-step committee. That's it. I've never said that. I went to a retreat. I wouldn't say I was being abused by God earlier, but I went to this retreat December. It's a beautiful retreat. It's actually Al-Anon registered. Al-Anon, we don't register retreats. Well, not that we do. But it's actually registered. It's called a Tri-State Al-Anon conference or something. But anyhow, the F word is down on St. Simon's Island, and it's in December. And anyhow, on the way down this year, I got a phone call, and I know what those phone calls were about. I mean, we were just leaving on our way. It was 3 or 4 days ahead of time. We went early. And they said, Al, how about speaking? And I hadn't spoken in a long time. And as we listened to the speakers, I noticed they all had notes. I've never done any notes. So I had a little bit, but I don't carry notes or anything. But anyhow, so I did do this morning, some notes. Only 2 of them, maybe God's notes. I hope he can bless the rest. And maybe, I'm sure God's all power, so I'm not too worried. I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. And what it was like is I was an achiever, I was a people pleaser, I was a perfectionist. Really, I didn't know that was a symptom of low self-esteem. I was big time in Myrtle Beach. I owned a business here. I did developing. I did all sorts of stuff. And really, it's funny. We rode by where I lived, not too far from there, on the dock, Robert Trent Jones dock. And I told my wife I would not trade that for this way of living that we have here. I had to go through all that to realize what we got. I love, your story about your family spiritually growing as they are also achieving. Well, I was not spiritually growing as I was achieving. I was going to church, and a lot of that was to show people how bad I had it. I had 2 kids and a wife that went around at night to places that, I was shocked. At the same time, though, I was big time in it out here. I had all these big time operations going. And thought that was the way you're supposed to live. My book back then was Think and Grow Rich. And that was my big book. And actually, the book's not too bad, but the way Al interpreted it, because I did it, and this is interesting, all the speakers have been, I did it in isolation. So whatever I'm out here performing and doing, nobody knows me. And I got Alan on, guess what? I didn't even know him. He said, what do you like doing? I'm a chameleon. What y'all do? So I had to experiment, and that was interesting. Learned to laugh at myself. Took aerobics. I have a habit for being around women. I looked up here a while ago, man, look at all these women up here. That's why I love my wife. She is loyal. And I'm loyal to her. I've learned that lesson. And so I'm not going to go into sex yet. So I did all the achieving and people pleasing, got to a big time level, and very much from the looking good family. No apparent alcoholism. We were Southern Baptists. But I also came from a family father that was a grandchild. Child was an alcoholic. Probably, well, I can't say that. He was a grandchild of an alcoholic. His father was my grandfather. We were really tight. And his father had told me, because his father was supposed to drink a day for arteriosclerosis. That was a recipe. And he said, I can't have one drink. And I actually remembered a couple of years after I was in the program, him being drunk one day. And my mother raged at it. To me, that was out of my memory. And when I actually went to my family and said, I think Pappy was an alcoholic, everybody was like, what? Because he owned property, he was a big time, developer himself, to some degree, So, that looking good family is what we were about. And so I continued that up. Eventually, things started to unwind. Thank heavens the economy went south. I was in the real estate industry, and really high rises. And the tax law changed. And all these guys we sold all these units to didn't know us, you know, and all of a sudden they're looking at these millions of dollars and all this. In addition, though, and this is what's so great is if you want to see what God worked, look at all the things that had to happen in order to get it. Because in addition to that, my wife was coming on tonight. And I called down here, it's still here, Roxy's. Haven't recovered enough to go in there and eat that much. But I called down there and I asked for Mrs. T, that's my last name. And they said, Maria, she's right here. Thank God it killed me. They knew her on a first name basis. I mean, it really killed me. And here I am, here for little old me, doing all this stuff. And my wife's down there in the door on a first name basis. And she's got 2 children, 2 small children. So, being in the business world, I just hired, coincidentally, a few alcoholics. So I had taken them down to the Al-Anon Club, and they would say, well, hang on, why don't you go in here to Al-Anon? And they'd also, one of them, actually 12 stepped into I was trying to sell him a condo. He 12 stepped into an AA meeting and gave me a book dated August 25th, 1975. And said, may God hold you in the palms of your hand, of his hand. Wrote that in there. And of course, what I got out of that, the only thing I got was there's a lot of different kinds of alcoholics. You know, there was a little old lady that lived in the Dunes Club down here. Then there was my banker, who, that made a lot of sense because I'd seen him at some of the nightclubs. And but anyhow, it did help me because one day that I realized with her being around and not being able to find her and all this stuff, that maybe this has something to do. It scares me really, because by then I was suicidal. I was ready to cash in. I had a big insurance policy. I thought maybe this has something to do with alcoholism. Thank heavens. And then on my list of what I was going to do was first go to the Al-Anon. And the night I went, it was a coincidence. But the guy that was speaking was somebody I could not believe he was there, and I couldn't believe why he was there, that he was there. And he was the speaker. I was like, great. And it was open AA meeting. And that was my introduction to kind of coincidences. And also the big introduction to me getting out of me. You know, learning about something else other than me. And although I'll say this is a paradox here, because you do learn about yourself, but you also learn about others. And that's a real gift for the program. So they told me when the Al-Anon meeting was. I walked in there, and the chairperson had a Dunes Club logo on the shirt. That meant a lot to me. That's where I was coming from. Don't remember a word they said, except keep coming back. And so I did remember some things from the meeting at that time, and I noticed it did keep me from thinking. In other words, it gave me new stuff to think about, rather than all the problems and everything I had. It was even some positive. So, but then I found myself doing stuff like I'd be on my way to a meeting, and I'd be thinking of what I was going to share. And I said, hell, you don't even know what to talk about. Then I realized, oh, I might have a problem. So there's a lot you learn, and AA taught me that this is more about action. It's not about insight. You might get some insight, but you got to take action first, which is a good thing to remember when you're down and out, depressed, and all that stuff. Just take action, show up, get honest. So anyhow, I go to start going to meetings. I start getting relief in meetings. We had AA and Al-Anon meetings around here, but I also went to Al-Anon. They had a big book study. We had a big book study on traditions and the steps. And we used that AA book, the 12 and 12, and we used Al-Anon. Don't tell anybody today. But I'll be honest with you, I got a sponsor. And my sponsor never, none of the men at that time in Al-Anon worked the steps when I asked around. One of them had, he lived in Maryland, and he said no. He said, you need to get somebody down here, that you'll see. And I said, well, hell no, work the steps. And he said, Al, you get what you need, not what you want. Okay. So I asked a buddy of mine that was in an anchor group here in Myrtle Beach. And the anchor group is one of the old-time groups in Myrtle Beach. It was the type of guys I used to be scared of because they were hardcore AA. But then when you're hurting, it's like in here, the late Agnes came up and talked to me about when I was young and recovery. I went to district meetings and area meetings and stuff. And you surround yourself with all these people that have a lot of recovery. And I said, Agnes, don't tell any stories. Because I was arguing with them and carrying on and all sorts of crises. But that's how it was. I got an AA sponsor. And I said, look, my sponsor doesn't know how I work the steps. What I do. So he helped me set up the structure, which is in that 12 and 12 on the 4-step. And so I got with my Al-Anon sponsor, who set me up appointments. I thought you'd just spill your guts out, And I'm obsessive, so I've made mine a long story, Then I went through and did my part in it, and all that. Anger and frustration and sex. I had real I had two big issues, and that one was money. Mine was God grant me enough money. That's the way I live my life. And then sex. And I've used it. I've used me and I've used women. I thought it was just I didn't know that at the time. I came in here thinking I was a Casanova. And really, I had no boundaries. I was attracted. If you look at my inventory of all the women, children of alcoholics are alcoholics. I mean, it wasn't like I was this big Casanova. It's like, I should have been doing 12-step calls. But actually, they should have been. But I'm sure I wouldn't have understood color. So I started with David in the anchor group. He helped me and worked the steps with Bob. And really, the 4th step to me is tremendous because that's when I found out I belonged in here. Before I could tell them why you belonged in here, but I never saw my heart. And I'll tell you the truth, I'm not a fast learner. I wanted to think I was, but in reality, even to this day, finding out that committee and what they're up to, it is that's a new venture altogether. So I did go to a lot of meetings. They taught me to go to district meetings. And it was great. We had a district meeting where it was all pre-planned what was going to happen there. And of course, I'm rebellious, so I didn't like that. Well, hell, you're supposed to have it. And then the lady that did it became almost sponsor of mine too. She said, Al, we're doing this for newcomers. We want to get to the training after the district meeting. And they'd have the training after the district meeting. But also, they asked me to be the GR. And I said, well, I can only report to you what they say. I don't even know what they're saying. And so that's what I do. I never knew that 2 years later, the former wife was getting a divorce. I moved to Greenville. And one of the ladies, Bessie L., that I met at the area center, that's who I gave their phone number. I gave them Bessie's phone number. Said, we didn't have cell phones. Said, if you get in trouble, you call Bessie. And Bessie knew me, and she ended up making my kids. But I mean, when can you get that? God's help. Because they were living with active alcoholism. So, I did the meetings, I did the retreats. I used to always want to go to a retreat at our convention that had something on sex. And they'd always say, well, hell, we talked about that last year. And then at one retreat, it used to be a Bonnie Doon, if y'all know about that. Beautiful place. And it was Al's going to have sex in the library with Doris. And what that meant was the topic was sex. Doris and I were, but it came out wrong. So we all laughed. And we've had some great discussions on sex. Sex is a hell of a problem. The 4-step stuff on sex and the tapes back there for Charlie and Joe, the Charlie and Joe tapes that he takes it right out of the where they go over that sex inventory. That's a big deal. I'll be honest with you, I didn't sponsor people because of this y'all's help. I ended up changing careers and going to work in mental health. Long story short, homeless folks. And so I wasn't going to sponsor people either. I was kind of like I was doing that kind of work. I did take a hell of a lot of people homeless to Al-Anon. 70–80% of them, probably even higher than that, are from alcoholic homes. And one of them sat in that damn room for a year and didn't say a damn word. So I finally said to him, I said, look, why are you going? And, I was getting frustrated. Poor little me. God's not telling me a damn thing. Later on, he couldn't shut him up. He started talking. He said, I planned my whole career to get to my alcoholic father. Just to prove his dad wrong. And I think, wow, you've been sitting here a year and you didn't tell him. But anyhow, I don't know anything. But I didn't do that much sponsorship. But I I worked with Dr. Graham, who is also passed and gone on, but he died 30, 40, 50 years sober. And he was a miracle man. Helped this town understand about alcoholism. One of the things he taught me was if I see dysfunction, and the way AA does it, it's fine, benign, just fine. If I see some of that going on, if I'm on my toes, Dr. Graham taught me this, I'll say, well, who in your family's alcoholic? then I won't say a damn word for nothing. And I've had people say, I am. What? You're not supposed to say that. Or, you know, my dad was, my daughter was, whatever. And that leads into a whole other discussion. But, anyhow, so I went on and I ended up working, changing careers. And since then, I retired. And that's been interesting because I'm used to being out in the community. And however, some of the things I have done is actually participate in my community. And it's kind of like going to church. You better take the program with you when you go. I mean, because some of, you know, you got preachers that I don't think believe in God. They're telling you what all you should do. It's like, huh? I believe in grace. I believe God's graced us. I didn't graciously accept it. Behind the scenes, I was thinking, hope you find someone else. But anyhow, I think what's helped me is just keep coming back to the meeting. And if you're not having fun, you need to start talking to them. And tell them, you know, I ain't coming here for friendship. Just tell them what's going on. And I used to actually meditate and ask God what to share the meeting on. Every time it was on honesty. God. Every time it was on honesty. But that honesty, open-minded, and willingness, those are, you know, there's a lot to this. There's no way to really talk about this. Because you live it, you meet people who are living it, you get encouraged from all of that. I learn about boundaries, I learn about, I learn about this is about, it's selflessness and selfishness. I've got to take care of myself, so I'm no good to you. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. So I've got to really take care of myself. My age, I said, it's a paradox. You got to learn how to have both things at the same time. I've got to love you, and I've got to set a boundary between me and you. You know, what's that? So I got to be around people that are doing it because it doesn't feel right to me. So it's just so much that I could say. I think I've said enough. That's okay with everybody. So thank y'all for having me. God bless you.
Let's keep standing.